let's call the August 7th, 2018 Natural Resources Board meeting to order. And if you could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. So have the roll call.
Yes. Ms. Mosblick?
Here.
Ms. Olson? Here. Ms. Glazer? Here. Mr. Stadelman?
Here.
Mr. O'Neill?
Here.
Okay, so
Motion to approve the minutes. Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So move on to the announcements. We have a new board member.
Our new board member, Susan Olson, she joins us. She's obviously a resident of the area. Spent a lot of time working in Broward County. The best way to explain her work experience, which is diverse, is that she has a lot of experience in getting things done. I think she'll be a great asset to the board.
Great. Nice to meet you.
Yes,
Welcome.
Thank you very much for joining us. And then we have still an open position on the Natural Resources Board.
We do. We have 2 alternate positions available.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to the next item, which would be the public input. If there's anyone in the audience who would like to. Okay.
I am Jane Schnee, and I live here in Sebastian. And I wanted to talk about the landscape ordinance. Should I do it now or when it comes up on the agenda? I don't have much to say. I just wanted to say.
It's not really a discussion item on the agenda today, so.
Go ahead.
So you may go ahead.
Huh?
It's not exactly a discussion item on the agenda, so you may go ahead.
So I talk about it.
But that's okay. We can hear you out.
I got the points that the board put together, and it's great. The only thing that I thought was somewhat missing is, I'm going to pass these out. How many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Whoops, I keep forgetting about this.
Okay.
I gave a talk recently to a group that wanted to learn more about getting rid of the grass and planting native plants. I didn't see anything on the list about reducing the amount of grass, in people's yards.
Right.
Which is so critical. That's what's causing so much of the problem with the, the fertilize, water, grass clippings that, go into the water and then sit there and rot. Mm-hmm. Plus the weed killers that people put on the grass. And I just received an email just before I got here about glyphosate killing our seagrass. Maybe not directly, but it's causing some kind of bacteria that's killing our seagrass. So if we don't get rid of the grass, we're never going to solve a lot of that fertilizer weed killer problem. So I just wanted to point that out. Anyway, this was something I put together for my little talk. I thought it was sort of funny. Honey, I Shrunk the Lawn. And on the back of it are some resources.
We're all on the same page here about that.
Yeah,
I think.
and I think where we were assuming it would go into the ordinance is, if you look, it's about halfway down. It says establishment of a % native vegetation requirement, and I think it was our understanding that by establishing a % native vegetation minimum,
right,
then it would preclude the grass from being there.
Correct. Sod is being seen as a non-native.
Yes,
right.
yeah, the grass.
Classified as non-native.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we were hoping to address that issue. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to point that out. I wanted to.
Yeah, no,
I had extra copies, so I thought I'd give it to you.
This is a problem all over Florida. It's not.
Yeah, okay. I think that's it. Thank you.
I just wanted to clarify by glyphosate, the commercial name is Roundup. So
Right.
it's a weed killer herbicide that
Right.
Ms. Schnee is discussing.
It's been banned in Europe. I mean, it's a bad thing. And I did read an article about how when the weed it's designed to kill in water dies, it does produce some other type of reaction that apparently is not good for the environment either. I didn't copy the article or anything.
That was my graduate work. It was, when the vegetation dies in the water, it actually, becomes what is considered muck. That, that sticky, organic material on the bottom.
Okay, so thank you, Ms. Schnee. Oh, I'm assuming, do you have her? We're good, okay. Okay. Is there any other public input?
If I have a comment about something on the agenda, do I wait until that point to read my letter? So for example, on the sustainable business initiative, do I wait until that conversation comes out?
It's probably a compliment to Nicole's presentation, so I would say present with that, under that topic.
Oh, under that topic?
Because of the fact that, yeah,
So
that
closely
she's,
linked?
yeah.
Okay. Okay. No further public input. Okay, so we'll move on to number 7, any new business? We don't have anything there. All right, so we're going to revisit some of the old business and things that we've been kind of reviewing the last couple months. So we have item A, the landscaping ordinance review. We all received the bulleted list in our packet with our recommendations from last month. And so this isn't an action item, so are we just going to discuss and see if there are any comments on the list that we received, any additions?
I want the board members to understand this dynamic. We haven't met with a consultant yet, so as you look over that, if you come up with something that we didn't discuss, this is literally every single thing I wrote down as everyone was talking. If there's something that you feel like wasn't brought up or discussed, you can message me, we can keep working on this list, so.
No, when I looked through the list, it looked very complete, so, yeah, I didn't notice anything that was missing. Okay. Any comments on that?
Did we establish what percentage was gonna be non-native? That's what, when I was looking through this, was it 50%? Is it what we're talking about?
I think 50% was the number that was thrown around, yeah.
Because I made some notes, there were some other communities that had much higher
That are higher.
percentages, as between 70 and 75%, which would limit your, grass area to roughly smaller than 25%, I would imagine, if there's hardscape involved. But how aggressive do we want to be with that?
I would say, personally, I would think that 50% would be kind of the minimum, and starting from there.
I think we should try to go higher.
Can we make specific number recommendations, or?
Brian has a good point, I've ask for a mile, take the inch, ask for what's ideal and see where we can negotiate on that.
I think Lee County was 70%, I think, or one of them that I read about. I can't remember where.
But then ask board members to also think about your own yard and what that would look like, what that would cost you.
We're talking about new construction, though, so this is, we're directing developers and people who are planning. So I would say at least 70% we should ask for.
Okay.
I have a concern.
Yes.
FloridaFriendly Yards requires 50% in order to be certified as a Florida-friendly yard. It's very hard to achieve. Well, because you're largely looking at shrubs and small plants. I mean, certainly you have native trees,
Sure.
but people aren't used to looking at a yard that is shrubs and small plants. They want to know how they're going to play their kid's gonna play in the yard if it's 75% shrubs and small plants, that if you're gonna run over. I'm fully agree with the concept, but achievability is very difficult. And, not only that, the small, native shrubs and plants and flowers and wildflowers, they come and they go.
Right.
And they thrive in the wet season and die out in the dry season. So you have a disruptive look to your property that is never the same. And I hate to say it, but people come in, they expect to have a yard, and why isn't it like that? And so it's going to be at a difficult reach. You're going to require the developer to do something that the instant somebody moves in, they're not going to be able to figure out what to do with it, or how to maintain it, or how come it dies in the winter. They don't understand the cycle of wet and dry season in Florida half the time. So to me, before you jump out and require something of a new development, there's a huge education requirement involved. For people who already live here even. If you're gonna have a native plant community, residential community of itself, you're gonna limit the developer's ability to sell the property, in my mind. And I think, but I think it's wonderful. It's a utopian view that I would love to live in. But I think what you're trying to get rid of is grass. You want pervious area. You want drainage, and you want a more native look. You know, I'm new here, but I have a history with native plants, and I'm from a county that's overdeveloped, continuing to be overdeveloped, but it does have a program, and it achieved a designation of a national wildlife community, which requires 10% of the structures to be certified by the National Wildlife Federation. And it was a cooperative effort between the Ag Extension offices and FloridaFriendly Yards and the Wildlife Federation, between their two different types of certifications, to certify residential properties, government properties, schools, so that 10% of the county was certified as either one or the other. Most of them were certified as wildlife habitats, not FloridaFriendly Yards, because they require maintenance to look the way people want them to look. And they still have an active program, and I'm talking about Broward County. And believe it or not, is certified as a national wildlife community, habitat community. And essentially,
Nightlife, right?
huh? They have lots of nightlife and wildlife, yes. But it's difficult to, I mean, essentially you have to start with butterfly gardens, because people understand that. But even butterflies, they come and go. They have their own little, they become caterpillars, but people don't like to see. Anyway, but I think reaching for the stars is wonderful. But whether you can maintain it in the long run is going to be difficult. People are going to, once they own the property and they have right to the property to plant what they want, they're going to be digging up they're going to be changing back to grass because they don't understand it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I realized after the last meeting was the role that some of the other organizations, for example, the Extension Office that we have in the county, and how they can play a role in increasing education when people buy property or when they go into their home, if it's a new home, that they understand some of those things. And I know that that was in the works. So we have an existing education packet. Maybe we can kind of modify it to address some of those issues.
Well, I think from my point of view, the city has an opportunity to lead by example. And the city needs to think about their own properties and what can be done to show off the type of thing that you could do in your yard, or you might want a developer to do. And I think you have to start at a very basic level, because as much as we talk about it, people don't always know what we're talking about. And when you have so many people coming from other areas, they don't even know what a native tree is, or where to get one, or why it's, the cyclical nature of rain in Florida is a whole mystery. And so just having some sort of basic demonstration projects here, there, in places that people use the facilities would be a start, and trying to draw in the schools in some way or nature.
I think certainly that staff and board members have been in agreement from the beginning that where we start is setting the example on city property and outreach. And after Nikki Monroe spoke here, I went to her office the next week. We both face the same challenge. How do we get our information out there? So we're working together. They have a folder. They have some landscaping outreach. I have some stormwater outreach I need to get out, and we're trying to think of the best way to present that and get that to the residents. So hopefully we'll have a solution that does a little better than we've done so far, which is when they come to us, we'll give them the answer.
Yeah, I mean, even looking out at the property here, one of the things that I think might be more achievable with the landscaping ordinances is that residences might want a lawn, for playing, et cetera. Commercial property, I feel like we could go higher with the % native vegetation. Commercial property, you don't have as much use of the grass. It's really just there as a, people think it looks pretty. But if you start to shift that culture, and if we start to get rid of some of the grass here as we roll out maybe these new landscape ordinances once they get drafted, et cetera, where we have community events where we bring, people in and show them this is why we're planting this here, this is why that's going there, that we could, have all of this kind of roll out at the same time, potentially.
And there are opportunities within the extension offices, within the Florida Wildlife Federation, for them to come in and assist with educational opportunities and materials and guidance. And essentially, it was a cooperative effort between those two organizations to amend their rules enough so that somebody could be certified as either a Friendly Florida Yard or a wildlife habitat that would then qualify them for county-wide recognition as what in Broward is called a naturescape. And the program is ongoing because people move and they change, and you continue to have to teach people. But essentially it was everybody was involved. It was a big effort from large groups, and it wasn't just the county doing one thing on their own. They used what was already available through other organizations. And I think Sebastian is unique, and that's something we can do too.
Perhaps the Earth Day Festival might be a good way to kind of advertise that as well. As we have so many people coming in, that we could have, maybe we set aside a plot of land that we want to try and create some kind of a native landscape.
Why not do something right down there at the Riverside Park? I mean, there's a lot of grassy area down there that seems like, I mean, it's good for walking your dog on, but is it really?
Well, or the small retention pond by the Main Street boat ramp. As I remember, it's grass, and there's nothing in it other than grass, and to show what you could do with a wet area.
The city has recently, we are we're revisiting our contract with our landscape management company, which is all the city properties and parks. They're changing over the contract to another company, and they're open for us to discuss more Florida-friendly design. So that's something we've just started working out this week. So it will be addressed, finding areas to put more diverse vegetation.
Great.
I mean, even if you look at our recommendation for the 15-foot, 10 to 15-foot buffer of native vegetation along down by Indian River Drive, you don't see that. So that's another opportunity for the new landscaper to put that in, and maybe even some signage. This is a new, brought to you by the city of Sebastian in an effort to bring native vegetation here.
And the benefits that come
Yeah.
along with it, yeah.
And I think you might even want to explain what plants are there, so people know what they could plant themselves.
Education will have almost like an education garden as well, a dual function.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would we be able to do a PSA, a public service, like one of the commercials that you see, where they come in and they'll just runs randomly on the government channel or?
On the government channel, we can put
Yeah, we
things
can
on
do
there.
a PSA and just where people could catch it on TV or on the radio, and basically saying what we're looking to do and try to educate people that way. It's a small community.
In what way? Like, would,
Develop something where it shows a lawn before the native landscaping was there and it was all grass, and then after, and just at the short 30 seconds, this is what it does.
the production of one can become a big ordeal, but I suspect there probably is already a good one that maybe some organization has available. Something we could look at. We do have a community government channel for notices, for public notices, but it's mostly like they can post a flyer or. Let's look into what other.
I would think between all the various government agencies that are out there, the Water Management District, and that are all encouraging the same thing in different ways. There's some promotion out there that you could borrow.
I suspect IFAS, they most likely have one, since they're the ones that put all that material out there for the area.
Okay, some great ideas as we move forward. Okay, any further comment? Okay, and let's move to item B. We discuss the community oyster garden. All right, Zach.
Hey everyone, good to be here again. Since last time I gave a little presentation up here, we've initiated our public education campaign. So this is just a brief summary of how that went. We had our first interactive site tour with the Junior Women's Summer Science Camp. There were over 40 children. I believe there were about 45 children, and a bit of a handful. They were well behaved. We divided them into 2 different groups and had 6 different planned stations, different activities set up at our project site over by the Fisherman Museum by Krabby Bill's.
I don't think I even turned it on.
So we started our summer camp presentation, if you will, with a brief summary of the work that we were doing down there. We had a little PowerPoint set up in the Fisherman's Museum and Krabby Bill's, where we walked the kids through the importance of the oysters in the ecosystem and what they could do to help them. And Krabby Bill's was also kind enough to come out and give snacks to everybody, so they were also very glad to be excited in the project. We had the kids move to a different group after that, continuously rotating, where we had a hands-on interaction with some of the invertebrates. I pull these oyster baskets up every day. For those of you that aren't familiar with the program, we've got what we call oyster baskets out there. And they're containers that we have about 15 pounds of live oysters in for us to collect our data on and to use for our public education campaign. And what I like to do is whenever I pull these up to check them every few days, is there's amazing little critters that are always living in them. So I save those up for a couple of days to show the kids, We had all kinds of shrimp. I find baby lobsters in them, all kinds of fish. So it's important to get them hands-on. You can see we've got a picture of them interacting with a rubber-banded blue crab that was safe for handling. We rubber band the claws shut, and as soon as everybody's done saying hi, we safely release them. We had a scavenger hunt that we made so that they could explore the museum, different areas in the park. They've got a neat crow's nest up there where the kids could go up and look through binoculars at these spoil islands, and we explained the different shorelines to them and where the spoil islands came from and their importance. We had the oyster data collection, where they got to assist us and do the work that we do with the collection on our project oysters, length, width, weight, mortality rate, so the kids got to get muddy, which they loved. And my favorite activity is we actually went down to the old Scout oyster site at Riverview Park, and we seine netted over that oyster bar that I presented on last time. And it's kind of cool. We have a 40-foot seine net, so we caught some neat animals that the kids got to say hi to, and I explained the importance of the animal in the local ecosystem, whether they are endangered or threatened, you know, do they have any commercial use? Are they good to eat? Do they take care of the oysters? You can see in the one picture at the top left that I've got a porcupine pufferfish there that we caught right on the oyster bar. We also did some water quality testing. We had water samples from the ocean, from the oyster site, from other areas in the lagoon, tap water, and we explained and walked through testing for pH, salinity. It sounds complicated, but these kids were really sharp. They were really dialed in on all of it. We explained what the water quality should be and what it is in these certain areas and what everybody could do to help that. You know, everything from the runoff to elaborating into the effect on seagrass and oyster bars. So they were very dialed in. It was a very nice summer camp. And we've got flyers out. Unfortunately, we initiated the campaign by the time we got everything put in. We are in a perfect period right now of summer camps being over and school not starting. So we are at the perfect storm right now of not having any more scheduled trips for the next week or so. If you guys could, I put a packet up there with everybody, help us get the word out. Children, teenagers, summer camps, private schools, field trips for public schools. We can alter, we've got about 12 different stations that we have. So depending on what kind of group we have coming in, we can alter what we're doing to attract that group, art camps, anything. But right now we are, like I said, running into the problem that as soon as we initiated the program, we're in a few weeks between the start of public schools and the end of summer camps. So if you guys could help spread the word, that would be greatly appreciated. Anybody in the audience, we do have some flyers back there if anybody has any ideas. Any questions? No?
We would love to have some ideas on places we could reach out to. I think we've gotten a list of volunteers from the Earth Day and the Pelican Island events, and they're all receiving a regular email. We're going to be doing a data collection next week. So we're using volunteers. So even if it's not for group visits, we need volunteers for data collection. We were contacted by the Environmental Learning Center. They're interested in doing a data share because they do the same types of activities. And then so does Pelican Island, but they don't do it like for groups. They do it for themselves. So a data share from different areas of the lagoon could be really valuable, where they could see the difference of species and water quality in different areas.
What day are you doing the data collection?
We're discussing a Thursday or Friday, early. I know ideally for most it would be later in the day, but it just gets too hot.
Next week?
Yes.
This week or next week?
Next week.
Next week.
All
But
right.
this is an ongoing data collection, I mean, so it's going to be every week, right?
Yes, ma'am. We just finished
The data won't be every
constructing it.
week. It'll be once a month.
Yeah.
Any questions? Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so the next item on the agenda, we have, it looks like we can try and find a board member who's willing to kind of take control in getting the word out, advertising, trying to get tours and recruiting volunteers.
For the community oyster garden?
Yep, mhm.
I'll try to do that.
You got that?
Yep. Mhm.
Okay, all right. So, okay, I'm gonna ask a procedural question. Since this is an action item, do we have to all vote on Brian serving as that member? It requires some feedback. Gotcha, okay. All right. Okay, well, thank you very much, Brian, for serving in that capacity. Okay, if there are no objections, we'll move on to the next item. We have item C, the Sustainable Business Initiative. And I have a PowerPoint presentation, so I'm gonna move down there. This is weird, being on this side of the,
There's no way for her to progress the slides without being on this side, so.
okay. All right. Okay, so just to kind of recap for everyone, one of the things we've been talking about the last couple months is trying to encourage businesses to take steps so that they are increasing their sustainability. So what I tried to do with this PowerPoint is just put together a summary. There's a lot of information out there, so I wanted to present what's happening, at least within kind of other counties locally that we might be able to help participate in and maybe help foster within the city of Sebastian. So, you know, just kind of our goal is to help businesses conserve resources, reduce how much waste they are producing. And so I know this is preaching to the choir, but just to kind of get that mindset of why this is really important. We know that we have so much single-use plastic that is being used, and and disposable materials, non-recyclable plastics in many cases, that are being used, particularly in business settings, not just restaurants, but also other businesses, and all the problems that come with it. So, landfill space getting, becoming less and less, marine ecosystems becoming polluted with the plastics. Eventually leading to ingestion of plastics within ourselves because we are part of that food chain. And particularly for the city of Sebastian, economic losses. There were estimates from global organizations, we have $13 billion that are being lost or being spent every year by having to clean up the pollution, having to deal with some of the biodiversity losses and those types of things. And so when we look at businesses, why aren't they switching to some of these other sustainable practices and away from these single-use items? And in many cases, they may not know where to go. They need help kind of moving in that direction. So, I think this is a really important role that Sebastian can play. We're the home of Pelican Island, the first national wildlife refuge, and a coastal community. So, in this, I put this together to kind of foster discussion. First of all, do we want to try and do this type of thing, or do we want to recommend this in the city of Sebastian? And if so, how do we move forward? So, if you have questions or comments, or please jump in. I might mean for this to be a discussion as we move forward. So that was our problem or solution. There are certification systems out there that businesses can participate in that allow them to kind of pick and choose. I want to go away from straws. I don't want to use styrofoam anymore. No more plastic bags. And they can get benefits associated with that. And so where I see the city potentially playing a role is that we can help kind of take what exists and add to that kind of bonus package and see if that can entice more businesses and create more community awareness. It's a culture shift to go away from the convenient plastics and other non-recyclables. And then also help businesses with transitioning and complying with some of these programs. So really quickly, what exists already? We've discussed in this board, the Surfrider has ocean-friendly restaurants. This is a nationwide program. It requires, and Brian actually, on our tables today, we saw this list exactly. that they have to do the first 4 things: no styrofoam, must recycle, only reusable tableware, no plastic bags, and then they choose 3 from the remaining list. And then they will be recognized on Surfrider's website. They get advertisement, they have annual events, they get discounts on some of these alternative items. This program does require a fee. Depending on the size of the business, it can be anywhere from $125 to $175, which on top of the cost of switching to items can be prohibitive. But it is something that does exist. The other program that exists rather locally is just north of us in Brevard. You have the zoo, and Keep Brevard Beautiful has started the Litter Quitter program. And this one, you can see on the left-hand side, has 3 different levels: bronze, silver, and gold. Hopefully you can see that on your screens. The type is large enough. And they basically, to get to the bronze level, have to do 1 of those items. To get to the silver, an additional within the silver group, and then gold, they have to do an additional 1 within there. So with this program, there's more flexibility. Businesses are able to pick and choose what works for them economically, financially, and however, less strict requirements. So if you're really trying to get that plastic pollution out of your community, this may not achieve the results as quickly. But when you look at these 2 programs, when I was doing the research, Surfrider locally in Florida, actually in the state of Florida, they only had 3 on their website.
Only 1 restaurant in all of Melbourne.
Well, I think they may have picked up an additional one, maybe in West Melbourne.
Okay.
But the Litter Quitter program has about at least 40 different businesses that they have kind of brought into and kind of have participating there. And so I think the question here, I don't think it's feasible for us to create our own system, and why reinvent the wheel. But what can the city, Sebastian, and again, I'll open this up, assuming that we want to move forward with this, what can we do to encourage businesses to participate? So before I move on, I just want to give you an opportunity. Are there any questions, concerns?
Well, my thinking was that this would be something that we'd probably introduce, in steps, right? First we want to, in conjunction with some other things that we're possibly doing, maybe. But as a rollout, you want it to be voluntary to begin with. But I mean, eventually, if you don't get compliance, then you have to use the stick, right? I mean, there's no reason why we can't have a single-use plastic ban in the city of Sebastian. I don't see why we can't have that.
I think that we're seeing it happen every day. You look at the news, you see another city that's banning straws and plastic bags, and I think the way it's looking, it's inevitable in amount of time that they'll just not be allowed anywhere. So it's kind of like, here we're going to make it a little easier to start, conforming now to this, because it's probably the standard that we're going to be forced to go by. So, yeah.
So maybe, come out with a voluntary program to begin with, see if we can get the city, I think really one of the problems, I think, is along the river here, where you have all these restaurants that are using all the single-use plastic. And if you walk up and down Indian River Drive, you'll see all kinds of plastic in the mangroves. I don't know who goes in there to get it, if there's anybody that does that, if the city is in charge of that, or when their schedule is, but there seems to be a lot of trash there. And particularly around the bar areas, so go figure.
I believe that's why our focus is on the waterfront restaurants mainly, because that seems to be the...
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, I mean, I guess I'll kind of, Brian, it seems like you're kind of on board with this. I do want to ask the other members as well, is this something that you feel the NRB can kind of contribute to the city and make a recommendation to the city council?
I think it's a great match for NRB. With our job is to balance the environment with human use, not just put the environment off limits. And getting the word out there, I think it is a great thing for NRB to be involved with.
I totally agree. Saw this on the agenda, and I'm aware that, there's another program that invites businesses. It's a challenge type of thing. I'm sorry, I don't know the criteria. But I know that West Palm Beach has an active program, and they recognize businesses and garages that do differently with their tires and that kind of thing. I don't have the information on it, but they do it. The criteria was set up through a large organization. I'm sorry, I talked to you about it, but I don't remember. It's an acronym.
I apologize, I forget the
Yeah,
acronym too.
It's an international
so
organization.
Yeah.
That
my
actually put
research,
this-
my research on it, it's limited because if you're not a member, you can't see a lot of
Yeah.
their resources.
But
It's primarily focused on the reduction of greenhouse gases.
yeah, but I think the litter quitter or the Brevard County program, it happened that today, I subscribed on Facebook to the Brevard Natural Resources, and they came and they were advertising the litter quitter program.
Yeah.
But I do think it has to be volunteer within the business community, and you have to work with the Sebastian Chamber. And it is an educational opportunity. Again, I think people have to know why they need to do this. And yes, there would be a carrot and stick at the end probably, but I'm gonna guess that this type of program with limiting plastics and that type of thing would also almost have to be broader, because we can't enforce something that comes from a provider from another place. I mean, plastic bags come to Publix from somebody, I don't know who, and Publix is looking at their plastic bags, I know, and straws, they need to be able to replace them with something else, and they don't get that product from the city of Sebastian, it comes from a vendor.
Right.
And so it needs to be, they need to have a reason to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think setting something up as a competition and a reward is always good, and being recognized by this community that they're serving is important. They can put up a plaque or a certificate or whatever at the end of the day. And I would think it would be great. But you gotta get a buy-in from somebody who doesn't wanna lose money.
Yeah.
They're into making money.
They are into making money, but they're also members of the community, and they have to be held accountable for the costs of their business. And if the city is spending money going into the mangroves picking up plastic, then the cost of the business is being shared by the city, and that's not right to the city. So we're here to represent the city's interests as well. Right. So, I mean, we have to, I think one thing we should do is we should reach out to some business owners and say, we're thinking about this, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I think some kind of workshop through the Chamber of Commerce together, inviting the businesses in, explaining what we're
They've got to know
is.
it's coming, so let's give them the heads up and say, we want to work with you on this, not against you.
But, I mean, you're right, we need to reach out to the businesses, and Ms. Olson makes a good point about, needing to, it would be ideal that we could just say, that everyone would just do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. But bottom line, they're business, and you got to kind of meet them in the middle. Yeah, you can't, it's not all money, but it kind of is when you own a business. So I think if we compile the different providers of these alternatives and some cost analysis comparisons, like most of them use, let's say, Cisco Parkway, and this is what they charge for this, and this is what this is for, and this is the company. They just don't know that they're available or where they are.
Right.
So we're kind of the ambassadors of that for them.
Yeah.
Is ideal. We've got to meet them in the middle because they still are a business. We've got to.
Well, when we have businesses now on the river that are not hooked up to sewers, although they may be in the future, or will be in the future, and they have to use something other than ceramic or glass, or they are using styrofoam
Right.
to provide a meal, and So, you know, you can't cut them off at the pass, because they can't do business otherwise unless they use something to serve a meal in.
Right, yeah.
I agree with the education part. We could have some kind of just simple flyer printed up, one for the businesses, for the different sources where they can get the items to switch over, and another flyer for their employees, just trying to reduce the straws and stuff, because anytime you go to a restaurant, it's like boom, boom, boom.
It's
and
automatic.
They throw it away even if you don't want it.
Yeah.
and-
They call it the ask first policy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
That
if
would
we
be
just
an
had
easy thing to
a flyer, we
implement.
could go to the restaurants along the lagoon to begin with,
yeah.
and start there and try to educate their employees and give the management the packet that would have the sources for
Yeah.
more sustainable.
Over the last month, I'm just going to show the next slide. Over the last month, I talked to 2 existing businesses that were opting into the litter quitter program. One was I'm going to mess up the name. Pareidolia Brewery was already in existence in the litter quitter program.
Pareidolia.
Okay, sorry. Pareidolia. And so I talked with him, and he was very supportive. And one of the things that he got nominated for it, and if you look, these are the existing benefits of the programs themselves. So just by opting into the programs, they already will get vendor discounts. So for paper straws, and they've done the research. They know that these paper straws last for 8 hours in a drink. So all of that has been vetted. And I was talking to him about those benefits, and he said, "Oh, I didn't even know. You know, we had to go from the cornstarch forks back to the plastic because our vendor stopped selling them." Well, this program you are already part of. We'll do that for you. And so, and Captain Hiram's was the other one. And they, like Rose mentioned, they're going for their ask first straw policy. And their staff was one of their big obstacles, is working with the staff, making sure they know, changing their kind of instinctual behaviors. You know, a bartender, just grab a straw, put it in, grab a straw, and, you know, they have to change what they do. So these are, you know, you see here, those 3 things are kind of the benefits that businesses can get. They get discounts by becoming part of this program on everything from the paper straws to other alternative kind of to-go containers and marketing promotion. So Litter Quitter and Brevard Zoo and all kinds of local organizations will promote the businesses. And they will have conferences where they get the businesses together and they kind of brainstorm and talk about, these are the lessons we're learning as a program. So I think some of the things that were already mentioned, I put in here just as, you know, brainstorming how can, Sebastian and the Natural Resources Board make it more attractive. How can we make it cool to want to do this as a business that will then bring more consumers their way? And I think, you know, we were already discussing that information packet where we give this to you. And this is already laid out. Just plug your numbers in. What do you spend on these things? What would it cost you to switch? And how can we figure out the cost differential and make it work? Also, one of the things I mentioned, or was mentioned when I met with the Pareidolia,
Pete, did you mean
the
Pete?
brewery.
Pete in the
Yeah, Pete.
Yeah.
He mentioned
Lynn.
recycling, making recycling more, and we've talked with the board of trying to make it more feasible, advertising those CRA grants that they can then, you know, bring it in, making a list of options for recycling companies, so that then they can just kind of pick and choose which ones work for them. Additional sustainable Sebastian or some other kind of term, some kind of signage. You get Litter Quitter or Ocean Friendly Restaurants, and then we also put our kind of sign on it too. And potentially, you know, advertising obviously on our website, hopefully a social media account of some sort, partnering with, as you guys mentioned, the chamber, and that they would play a role in advertising this as well. And I think it would be pretty easy for the city to try and do kind of like a business of the month type of ordeal, where they recognize businesses as they join in and get the promotion and kind of the media that way. I had on there, and I wanted to open it up. Are there any other potential ideas that you guys see from your experience out in the real world that would make a business want to, and I wish I were up there, because I really don't want to be lecturing to you guys.
I wanted to add real quick that, that staff had recommended, after reviewing, Ms. Modsblack's research, that the CRA, that's the businesses that are within, on the waterfront.
Right.
That, businesses within the CRA, we could probably qualify them for a grant that will cover the cost of them joining these groups. So
Fantastic.
that's something that, and also I'd like to add, I heard today that there's a city council member that supports this, loves this initiative. So it's nice to know we have some support for sure.
Fantastic.
Just an idea, sorry, go ahead. One of the things I've heard out there is that, different companies were offering discounts to bring your own cup or, your takeout. One of the things that they did, the study that I was listening to, they switched it from a discount to, this is what the actual cost is if you bring your own cup. And it costs more to get a cup. So it's a change in perception. You bring your own cup, it costs 50 cents. If you
save
don't,
money.
Oh.
yeah, it's a change in
Interesting.
perception. And it's it really did work. They call it a cost a cup.
Yeah, and the American Restaurant Association has done studies on this as well, and they found that business goes up when you put up your sustainability sign in your window. So, I mean, the actual data is there. People are looking to support this stuff, especially, I think, striking while the iron is hot, so to speak. There's a lot of water issues going on in Florida right now. And I think this would, the sooner we can roll this out, or at least get some business owners in here to give us some feedback on what we're trying to accomplish here.
Do you think that we could, you've spoken with the Chamber of Commerce?
Yes, actually, I was in touch with Miss Mitchell today. She was on vacation, but she read through an email I had sent, and she said she had to take the idea to the board of directors to kind of field it to everyone, and then would be back in touch with me.
So I was thinking, rather than, assemble our own meeting of business owners, which we could do, but they already do it every month, so maybe, we could just send a couple ambassadors to, field comments and questions about the program at their meeting.
Yeah, I would take it a step further. I would think if the board has a consensus that they would like to move forward, and I would think at some point you're going to have to bring it to the city council for approval, but between steps, where the board has a consensus, whichever program it is, if it's similar to Litter Quitter and you assign a Sebastian logo or name to it, you need to make a presentation at one of the lunch meetings. Somebody needs to go to them and say, this is what, we're halfway there, and we're going to be presenting this, and we need your input, and we want your buy-in, because I think it has to be more formal. They have to know you're serious about it. And the other thing that concerns me, it's kind of a devil's advocate kind of thing. We have any number of events at Riverview Park, and every vendor has plastic, this, that, and the other. And somebody's going to be pointing fingers our direction. And I'm not sure how, certainly the vendors can also change their ways, but not as quickly as others. Some are not as others, and it's something to think about, because somebody's going to challenge us.
Well, that's an interesting point, because don't they need a permit to use for anything that goes on down there? Isn't there a permit issued? I mean,
You mean for community events?
The vendors would
Correct.
have to have a permit, certainly, to be there.
The vendors have their own permit,
if we
and then,
have
but
a
each
li-
event has
if we
its
have a
own.
list of approved products that they can use, and it gets distributed in advance of the event, this is what you have to have. You can't use single-use plastic in this park. I think
Well,
that would...
but now you're telling the Rotary what they can do, or
That's right.
whoever.
That's right. That's right. It's about time somebody did.
Now you're asking for a bunch of people at this meeting.
Maybe it comes down to the same, where we really need to focus on making this list of vendors for these products
Yes.
and showing them that they're available. and then
And discussing the
incentivizing them.
Yeah, and,
And
you know,
cost is gonna be-
maybe we could meet them halfway. I think that the idea of setting the example in the park is something that we would definitely have to do. And if we were able to, if we could use some of the CRA funds to try and, purchase some of the, materials that they might need for a certain event, or signage. I know when I met with, Sharon Connolly, who helps to run the Litter Quitter program, she mentioned that in their research, they found that if you put a sign up and that says, this is what we're trying to do to be more sustainable, and list the steps, and it says at the bottom, you know, as a result, we have had to increase our prices 10 cents, 25 cents, that most people will read that and they will still participate. And they will actually, you know, you feel good because you are supporting a sustainable initiative. And so, you know, that's not everyone, but it, you know, they have
That is
found.
the most important thing to a business, is what is my return on my investments?
Sure.
And regardless of how well-meaning everybody here is, if they don't get a return on the investment, it's thumbs down, regardless of what laws you pass, everything.
A really neat,
show them how they're gonna make money with this.
Yeah.
a really neat initiative I saw at 2 large-scale community events in Brevard that I thought was amazing was, first of all, you have a group that's throwing this as a fundraiser, this event. And they told the vendors, you are not allowed to sell any bottled water whatsoever. They have free water stations set up everywhere. So they tell you in advance, bring your own bottle, there's free water stations, and then they sell bottles for the event that are refillable. And you know, and it's a great fundraiser for that group too. And there were no plastic bottles anywhere. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
And no one was upset about it. It, you know, went
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
They do that at the Pelican Island Wildlife Festival here. The company in town brings their water coolers and donates the jugs of water, and they sell recyclable, eco-friendly containers, and everybody can refill at any time. I was just on vacation, and I carry either my cup or jug or something everywhere I go. And one problem with bringing your own to a restaurant, they're not allowed to touch your cup. They're not allowed to take it to the kitchen and fill it up for you. So are they going to put your soda or your drink in a pitcher and then bring it to you? Or I'm not sure how that would work if they brought your own. But national parks everywhere are all eco-friendly. All of their products are updated, no straws. I was very impressed with kitchens, carry-out containers, everything is out there.
Yeah, it does.
I don't think the marketplace is the problem. You know, the problem is perception, is that people don't believe that they can get bamboo plates that are the same price as plastic. They don't. And so if we can help them, show them how to do that, I think we're ahead of the game.
The litter quitter program that Brevard has, is that unique to Brevard, or is it?
No, I thought so.
Yeah.
And then when I was on their website doing research, I saw these 2 businesses in Sebastian and was, you know, pleasantly surprised. And then when I met with Sharon Connolly, she mentioned that they are intending to expand the program, that they would love to go, you know, statewide, nationwide, and build partners outside to make this more of a widespread effort.
Okay, the lady that you spoke to, Sharon Conway, is she a Brevard employee?
She works with Brevard Zoo.
She works with the zoo?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're working under the zoo's hat, is it? Not the county hat?
Yes,
Okay.
I heard.
The Brevard Zoo has many environmental outreach programs. They have
Yeah.
Restore Shores program. And Brevard's unique in that they have a special environmental tax that funds a lot of these programs. And that's how the Brevard Zoo can diversify their outreach message so well.
Yeah, they have other things.
Yeah, it would be, I mean, we talked earlier about not reinventing the wheel, and that's a good one not to reinvent.
Right, yeah. We, I was just at a meeting where I heard that we have an existing kind of referendum for what we do with an extra kind of sales tax in this county. And I believe it has to go for 4 years. We have 2 more years. But there are people who are anticipating pushing for that in a few years.
So it would be a countywide tax?
It would, yeah, that'd be a countywide, yeah. Now, again, I'm not an expert, that was my impression from the conversation.
Well, the city just a few months ago, doubled the stormwater tax. So they'll probably be apprehensive to inflict another tax for a little while.
Okay. I think, one of the things I think is great and kind of attractive about this is that I think it can, and that's, the last slide, is that with partners from the community, with the chamber, with environmental organizations, and getting people on board, volunteers, even as I was, again, talking to the owner at the brewery, he mentioned, we have a network of people that come in pretty regularly that recognize sustainability. And he even, offered, we'll have a kickoff party here, we'll see if we can get volunteers, to kind of sign on and share what the initiative is. And I think that's where we will need help, is once we have the information that we can take to the businesses, we will need other people that we can kind of train and help work with us, that will go out and set a goal for how many businesses do we want to try and get, participating, and hopefully it'll kind of trickle in and then become a huge wave. But, and also, there are going to be obstacles. So if we can help, if they're coming up with a problem, instead of just giving up, come to us and say, this is the issue I'm having, our vendor's not coming through, not getting us enough, and we can, help out in those ways too. So I think that the city and community partners can really play a big role. And that was what I had.
I think both of the concepts that we've talked about this evening, the business community as well as the remainder of Sebastian being involved in native plants, or it's really a matter of people would like to do something, they just don't know how.
Oh, right.
And they have to be taught. And the business community is easier to talk to because it's smaller and they are already organized. The residential communities, new and old, are not organized, and they're much larger, and there's no device to talk to these people together. We're not on TV, we don't have a newspaper that people pay attention to. I was talking earlier to this young lady the other day, I forgot your first, Kim, and I used to be active in a small city that didn't have TV and didn't have newspapers either, but we had a water bill that you could stick a flyer in. Yeah. And I did not, but our water bill comes from Indian River County, it doesn't even say Sebastian. And however, I did get my water bill just a couple of days ago, and there was a insert from the supervisor of elections. So there is a means of doing that, except it would only have to go to Sebastian people. And I have expectation that the supervisor of elections flyer went to everybody who got a water bill all over through the Indian River County. And but anyway, there's no real way to reach out and touch people. There's no media, really. I mean, if you want to advertise on a West Palm Beach station, but I don't think you want to. So it's the challenge is going to be communication.
Yeah.
I have one question. I didn't see anything on glass bottle recycling here. Did we leave that off?
On the recycling effort?
Yeah, on the glass for glass bottles.
So,
Did I miss something on
the recycling was part of,
this one here? Okay,
yeah, Ocean Friendly, it is a requirement.
Okay.
For Litter Quitter, I want to say it's at their gold level. And so there are opportunities for that.
Okay.
To get them up to that level. Okay. Sorry, I know that you've been waiting, but if you want to come up and contribute.
Thanks for having me. My name is Missy Weiss.
Can you spell your last name? Weiss.
Thank you for having me. I'm just going to read a letter, but you'll notice that a lot of the points in the letter are actually identical or very similar to many of the talking points that you just had, which is lovely because I'm coming at the perspective of an outside resident of Sebastian as well as an executive director of an environmental organization. So it's nice that not having really any idea of what you guys were going to be talking about today, we're on very parallel lines, which is nice. So I'm just going to read my letter and we can go from there. My name is Missy Weiss. I am the Executive Director for See a Difference Environmental Services of Indian River County and a resident of Sebastian. I attended a natural resources meeting several months ago where I addressed the board about my desire to see a more sustainable Sebastian and my wish to form a Sebastian Sustainability Task Force. This task force would help local businesses and restaurants transition to a more eco-friendly approach and develop a plan to integrate sustainable and environmentally friendly practices into their workplaces. So when I saw Sustainable Business Initiative on the agenda for tonight's meeting, I was excited, happy, and extremely optimistic. As you may or may not know, and you do because Ms. Mosblick just mentioned it, there are currently 2 sustainable business initiatives being pitched locally, mainly in Brevard County. The first is Brevard Zoos and Keep Brevard Beautiful's Litter Quitter program, and the second is coordinated by Surfrider Foundation called Ocean Friendly Restaurants. While both initiatives approach the topic of sustainability differently, their objectives are the same. They want to encourage and incentivize local businesses to commit to transitioning to more sustainable practices using a tier system, from limiting the use of plastic straws to switching from styrofoam to plant-based substitutes and more. As Ms. Mosblick just went through, obviously, that's what I'm referring to here. It is my opinion and professional recommendation that the City of Sebastian adopt one of these pre-existing initiatives, but personalize it under the notion that every city is different and Sebastian is unique. So perhaps the city could uniquely incentivize businesses to participate in several ways. One way could be to assist them with these annual fees or provide a voucher for businesses to use toward the purchase of certain sustainable products. Or maybe the city or NRB could approach various distributors or vendors and see if these discounts can be arranged for businesses participating in the program. Another option could be to promote these businesses that support the Sustainable Business Initiative by showcasing them in a variety of ways throughout the community, whether it be a Green Business of the Month mentality, where that business is promoted on the city and NRB social media pages, or simply a vinyl banner with Sebastian Sustainable Business of the Month is hung outside the establishment. Or even special recognition can be given to participating businesses during events in the city, like the Chamber's Light Up the Night, the Earth Day celebration, and others. My hope is that this meeting serves as a springboard for further discussion and action in the creation of a sustainable business initiative, and specifically in the task force, including NRB members, city employees, local business owners, and interested organizations like myself, so that these ideas can be implemented and, most importantly, integrated into our community, and that positive environmental changes can be made before it's too late. So I just wanted to thank you for allowing me to be here and let you know that as a resident and concerned citizen, I'm happy that you're having this discussion and would be more than happy to assist in any way, whether it's volunteering or being on that task force or whatever it may be, or recruiting volunteers through my own organization. So thank you.
Thank you, Missy.
Thank you, Missy. I think your presentation, that was my first NRB meeting on the plastics collected at a cleanup, really drove it home how big the problem is and how localized it is. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think we have some great ideas. We've got, moving forward, I guess, as we kind of roll this out, I don't know, would it be all right if I kind of summarize some of the ideas that we had for incentivizing businesses, come up with kind of a plan and an outline. For the city council, are we able to, I don't know the format for how we would present it to them, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, don't we have to meet with the business community first, though?
Okay,
We
yeah.
really
I
should
think
have
the
a
task force is
clear,
actually a good idea here, because.
So have some kind of a workshop?
Right, because I think.
once you address the city council, they're going to want it to see it already developed exactly how it's going to roll out. They're going to have a lot of questions, and if you can't answer them, that's,
And we.
you get, yeah.
It's gonna go much further if we have the buy-in from the business owners.
I
to
think,
present.
and that's what I felt like the next meeting should be dedicated to, streamlining this and, maybe we
I
get a.
think, in my opinion, you need to, if we haven't defined the program yet, you need to define what you want to do within this board.
Well, I
Then
think
we
we
need to
wanna
take the
ban
temperature.
single-use plastics.
Yeah, we need, well.
Or
I
eliminate
understand-
them,
I
eliminate
understand
them.
we want to deal with straws and plastics, but you have to explain how and why and what the reward is. And then we need to take the temperature of the business community through the Chamber of Commerce by presenting it to them and telling them that this is what we would like to do and what we would like to present the board. And we need to know who is on board, and we need to know that there's this business and that business says that they think they can do it before you go to the city council, because you're going to need them to approve the program because there will be some dollars that follow along. And, I think we have to outline a program other than what we've already discussed. And I think you just, for me, just doing it by myself, I would find out how the litter quitter people do the thing. And, and what the reward is, what the benefit is, and get their lists of vendors that they have already put together, because that's the big thing. And,
Yeah, I think you're right in that offering what's already existing is something you would want to do. And I think one of the things I would want to do, and maybe we can try to have some kind of a workshop. I don't know I know that inviting the chamber to an event of ours, but it might actually be,
you're asking something
Good
from
to-
them, you need to go to them.
yeah. Okay, so, well, what I think would be most feasible to roll out is kind of take what's already there. Businesses can choose from those options, litter quitter, ocean friendly, and we just offer, we support them. How do I? So we're not reinventing any wheel. They offer the existing vendor discounts. We would make those discounts easier to understand for the businesses. So we wouldn't have to set up any additional partnerships. They are already there and in existence. And we could just facilitate, make it easier, and then do the additional kind of promotions, advertisement within the businesses at the city council meeting, et cetera, to kind of entice the businesses.
Do they
further.
I've seen the Surf Rider information, the litter quitter program, do they have like a package that they send out to potential litter quitters? I mean, what does their marketing package look like? And, we're gonna have something similar, right? Or just private label it or whatever. I mean, I don't know if you can do that, I don't know.
Well, yeah, I don't know if you can private label it, but you could certainly use, I would think, their information. They have a website, the information is available. They have a packet that talks about the impacts of using these things, and then offers resources for how to switch.
We should be able to see one of those. So I'd like to get one of those packages.
If you go, yeah, well, it was at the last
Was it?
meeting, one of the
Okay.
websites.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, you
Okay,
can, yeah.
perfect. Okay.
The Surf Rider one?
Oh, yeah, I've
Was
got
it-
that one.
And that was provided by Brian, so I know he's
Yeah.
seen that one. But if we get the packet for the litter quitter, then I'll include it into the next agenda.
Yeah.
'Cause I
that's-
definitely think it deserves a review.
Litter
of
quitter,
What,
keep of our beautiful.
And I liked your idea of the uniqueness of Sebastian, and so that, while we're borrowing somebody else's program, it needs to have something that connects it to the community that we lived in and the businesses that are in there. And I'm not good at that, at developing a marketing tool like that. But maybe if all of us kind of think about it.
Well, like a
and come up with-
Pelican Recycling Pride program or something, like Pelican Pride or something. I don't know.
I've consulted with planning and zoning as well about what kind of sign businesses can put, because there are regulations on that, and suggested that something the size of like a real estate sign is possible to put in the windows if we develop some sort of logo. That would be nice.
I keep going back to a saying, it's not, but I always liked it, but it was simple and to me, it gets to the bottom of the issue, and it starts with save what's left. And it's it's not optimistic, but sustainable, Sebastian, it's what, well, kind of says the same thing in a different way. Okay, but the bottom line, that's what we're trying to do, is save what's left.
I don't know if we could do this on our website, but under the litter quitter with Brevard Zoo, they have different icons for submit business application, volunteer login, nominate a business, and volunteer task. If we could do something where we could gather all the information and volunteers that are willing and in one place, we have the website.
The city can easily pull up an address of addresses of businesses along the CRA, and that's.
Well, and we've been talking about the riverfront and the CRA, but there's a lot of other businesses in Sebastian. Sure. And there are businesses that don't use straws and styrofoam, but they have oil and tires and other bad, nasty things. Are we going to make it that kind of a broader scope?
I think we were talking about plastics and bottles, right? You know, basic recycling or, you know, elimination, you know, right?
And adding the recycle bins to remember from when Stephanie Fonneville came? Her idea about I was surprised that so many businesses didn't have the recycle bins, and that's certainly something we want to facilitate them adding as well. Yeah. We don't forget that. That's definitely a part of it.
I guess I kind of see our role as selling what's already there, making it easier for businesses to do that. And you know, I think you're right that it shouldn't just be restaurants. And that if you look at Litter Quitter, there are some other businesses, say for example, that they offer e-receipts instead of paper receipts. So there are other things that their organization will then kind of take into consideration. The brewery actually will use their waste and they will compost it, or they're not going to put it in the landfill. So, and when I talked to Sharon, she mentioned that they are planning on expanding it to other areas like energy efficiency and you know, the inclusion of composting at their restaurants. It takes time to get there. And that's one of the things I think is attractive about this, is that if we are just supporting what's existing, and they're hoping to go there in the future, we're not being redundant. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
The standards that regulate the waste around auto supply stores, you know, auto shops, and that's all set by the state level. That's not something that we can so much have an effect on, and it's monitored by the stormwater department. So. I think it's out of our realm to be monitoring or testing for.
But I mean, you notice even if you go to Publix, there's recycle bins for plastic bags, but there's no recyclable bins for bottles.
Well, that's because homeowners put their recycle. Yeah. Hopefully, they take care of that themselves.
But you can't put plastic bags in recycle bins.
If you have a bottle of Coke outside Publix, where you throw it.
I mean, they don't have a recycle can, like period recycle can.
You're gonna
like.
There's not a recycle bottle bin.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. It's.
You can carry it home in your car.
You can carry it home in your car and recycle it at home.
Easy
exactly.
Enough.
That's.
I do the same thing in my lunch
But what
bag.
about the people who don't live in Sebastian or come and just use the beach? Where does that bottle go? That's There's a lot of things. There's a lot of areas for improvement here.
The beaches do have recycling bins.
Right, but I'm saying for somebody who's
if they're
just
at Publix,
right.
Yeah.
And so do our city parks.
Yeah.
All right.
The city parks have recycle. Yeah. I like they have ones that compact it.
The big bellies.
Yeah.
It's if you're going to keep this to the riverfront area, it's going to be more difficult to define that to the Chamber of Commerce, I think. because you do have so many other businesses out there. I think it's a solvable problem because what you're doing is working within the CRA area, essentially. So, you know, Giuseppe's wouldn't be involved. And, but a lot of other smaller businesses, I think you would almost have to present it as we're starting here because of the CRA and because of the prominence of our riverfront and the importance of the riverfront. And, but we hope that everybody else in the chamber will follow suit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It should be a citywide program.
Right.
I mean, there's no question.
Right. But we gotta start somehow.
But the beginning and the help that we're able to offer businesses comes from the CRA.
Right. And perhaps once, you know, they're of course welcome to conform to them, and we can give them that certification. It's just, we don't immediately have a source to assist them with the funding of belonging to those programs, so.
Right, and I mean, it's only the ocean-friendly one that would have the annual fee. You know, thinking about the other businesses, they may not have they may be outside of Sebastian city limits, so we may not technically be able to use our signage, but they could, I mean, maybe there are legal issues behind it, but if we prepare some kind of an information packet that makes it easier for businesses to join in, they would certainly be part of the litter quitter program and have all of those benefits. Yeah.
I would love for it to be something that's useful outside of our city limits, of course.
I also think the idea of offering two different programs is great. I mean, it's, you know, it's not, this is what you have, you can do either or.
Because there's different types of businesses that use single-use plastics in different ways, and it's just, like Ms. Olson was saying with the landscaping, you know, one might be easier to conform for this business than one, you know, is more feasible for another. And
Okay, so next step, so we want to try and approach the chamber. I guess I'll wait to hear back from Ms. Mitchell and see what she says.
I really think you're going to want to collaborate with the Chamber of Commerce before we go further. It's certainly for them to be in support of this program and for them to assist with outreach to the businesses.
I'm wondering about even reaching out to the owners of the establishments on the river. I mean, that would be, you know, it's a logical next action item as well, right?
We just want to make sure we're not stepping on toes. We go
Okay,
to
so go
and we go to
through
the Chamber of Commerce first.
Okay,
and tell them your intention.
Let them
We
know
want to
that we
reach
want to reach out to those people,
Yeah.
yes.
Most of
Let 'em know.
those businesses are members of the chamber. I go to the chamber
Right.
breakfasts.
So we want
out
to,
at Marsh Landing.
but we want to get their input, so somehow we got to get them
What you want to do is, you want to go to that breakfast and that luncheon that they have, and when I tell you there's 100 people there, it could be anybody from, the whole Sebastian City Council, the whole Fellsmere City Council, it could be just anybody at these luncheons, and you'll get scheduled on, you can talk in front of 50 Sebastian business owners at one time, and all you have to do is sign up with the chamber and interface with them, and you'll be able to hit a big chunk of those.
That's why I
those
think
stand-up
instead of
and
us
talk
having
to
a
them.
workshop, we could reach so many more businesses if we jump in on their meeting they already have, for sure. And then maybe you know, they may recommend that we have our own to just address the restaurants and whatever, CRA or whatever, but I think that's the best start.
Do you know when the chamber meetings are? You said they're breakfast.
You can look it up online. The Chamber of Commerce has a good calendar that you can pull up anytime.
Are they're usually during the working day though?
They are
Friday
during the
mornings,
working
aren't they?
hours, yeah.
Friday morning for breakfast, and is it Tuesday for lunch?
Tuesday or Wednesday, and it's at different places, and they also have a social sometimes, after hours. But that breakfast is usually during business hours.
Main meeting.
I don't mind going, I go anyhow, so, when I can. But it's a business.
So do you think the chamber before we have our goals and project outline, or vice versa? Yes, okay. All right. Okay. I guess I'll look at the chamber schedule and see where we can go from there. And if I contact you about whether or not I can make a meeting, and then if not.
Sure, I'd be glad to go.
All right.
I'd like to go too, so,
I'd be happy to go.
Can you kind of be the
Sure.
Yep.
touch point for organizing? Okay, all right, cool. Okay. All right, that's exciting. Okay. Any further discussion about that? No. Okay. All right, next up we have member matters. Is there anything anyone would like to bring up?
I would. I believe we're at the end of our fiscal year for our budget, and we still have money, which if we don't use, we will lose. And we keep talking about native gardening and things. I see flower beds right out here could use a lot of attention. I would like to dedicate some money that we have left to putting native plants out here. Should we wait till like September or something to plant? It's kind of hot yet now.
Yeah, I would wait, and I think a native plant demonstration garden is a great idea.
yeah, I second that
And whether
motion.
it's here or at one of our parks, I think it's a wonderful
How
idea.
much is left?
How often does this get watered out here?
Oh, the sprinklers run every morning, early, but, yeah.
I'm sorry,
How much is left? What could we do?
$400?
That'd make a nice garden.
Give or take, I think.
Somewhere around there.
Do we have any issues with, do we have to find different vendors and bids for plants or anything like that? We can decide where and how we want to buy them?
Again, I'm not exactly sure on the process, but it would be my understanding it would be.
We have the native gardens that support us every year for our Earth Day celebration. They also come to Pelican Island. There are a couple nurseries in town that have
I think we should give
a
the
few plants
local
here and
nurseries a
there.
chance to, yeah,
But
to participate.
one's out of the city limits, and the one across the street only has a couple items. They don't really have native plants.
Yeah, they mainly trees, and mainly palm trees across the street. The one you're thinking of off Roseland, they're in the city limits.
Busy Bee would be out of city limits.
Shady Grove.
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah, they're in city limits.
Yeah.
There's Dig Gardens as well, but they're
They're out too.
Dig,
And they're
yeah.
also.
I would go to the person that supports us.
Well, how big is the planter we're talking about?
What do you have, 4 gardens out here?
Are there 4 vendors? We could contract with each one for 1 box each and see what they come up with, native plants, you know, kind of thing?
Why don't we start with seeing what, and it's a great idea, let's see what we have available. And there are a set of rules on how we can spend it and start from there. But I think it's a great idea.
Yeah,
Maybe put it on next month's agenda?
I have a question on the budget. I didn't pay attention, that there's a new budget cycle now. They're going to be approving the budget here, probably within the next month.
The new budget's reset October 1st.
It's already set? Oh, I know it starts, but have they already finalized the budget?
Oh, it's been finalized,
Okay.
yeah. It's finalized in April, I believe.
In April?
April, I believe.
Okay. So so you do have to spend that $400. It doesn't roll over. Do we know how much money is in the current budget for this board? For the new budget coming?
I believe it's set the same, it's been the same for a few years.
Which is
1,500.
Yeah.
1,500, because we're talking about spending a little bit of money here.
Last year was only 1,000, I believe,
Yeah.
and they upped it to 1,500.
And if we didn't, and if we didn't spend that, they're gonna drop it back again. And, but the budget has been approved, it's done, they sealed it.
It's done, yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know how that's changed, so I'll have that ready to tell the board.
All I can say
For
is
next
it was
one.
cheap.
I had one question that I wanted to bring up, Kim, if you don't mind, for member matters. I was at a meeting and it came up about the stormwater park that we have over in Englar. And I'm not sure if this is directly under our kind of review, but I remember going there before I had children, so this is a long time ago. And the pumps were operating as the water management district was in charge of it. But I was told that they don't operate the pumps anymore. And I think this is a major loss for our water quality. I mean, they built this, it's supposed
Hold
to
on.
help. Okay, all right, sorry.
I can guess what meeting you were at, and I can guess exactly who said it, 'cause they keep telling me this, and I keep telling them that that's not true. Now, when the stormwater park was set up, it was set up from a cost share with St. John's. They own the property, we manage it, that's how it works. So, they originally had pumps that St. John's operated the pumps, and from a remote location, without knowing what our rain conditions are, which in Florida is completely different, or what the water levels are. It just became a difficult situation where they had to keep calling for conditions and then reporting back. So what happened is that now St. John's does not run those pumps, and those pumps are run by the two head guys of the stormwater, Tim and Phil. And every time people say, well, why aren't the pumps running? I go, they are running. And we have record of when they run them. They keep logs. They're run manually by the stormwater guys that know the stormwater situation here. So it is run, and it is run on a cycle. It's just not run remotely anymore.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
No, thank you for the clarification. Okay, any other member matters? Okay, so we have the item for the next agenda. I think we're agreed that we'll try and go over some goals and a project outline. I'd be willing to put that document together based on our discussion today, and maybe use that as kind of a point for discussion, kind of going through and having something concrete.
I need to add, it was just decided, because we've been going back and forth. We're doing some capital improvements in this building, which haven't been done since it was built, and they're putting carpet in here. And I really wanted to continue the momentum we have from the Sustainable Business Initiative and not miss a meeting, but it's inevitable. For 2 weeks next month, they're going to be putting new carpet in here.
Can we move our meeting back?
That is a possibility.
Can we look at doing it like maybe the 20th or whatever, first 2 weeks, or after they're done with the carpet? Here's one thing I'm very concerned about, is running out of time.
Right.
I've only been on this board for 8 months or whatever, but I already feel like I'm behind on what we need to get done.
A lot of us felt the same way with our boards at this point, and we really pushed for it to move to the end of the month, because that would be better, but it just doesn't work with the carpet guys. So we really did fight and try. We went back and forth all week. And that is a possibility of moving our meeting ahead or behind. And I personally would like to, because I will not be here in October, and I would really like to be a part of this next meeting.
Let's see if we can do that. Can we all agree to?
Yeah, do we have to make a motion to?
Reschedule?
We don't have to make a motion.
No, so it doesn't have to be something.
That you're interested, and then we'll look into what is available, because a lot of other meetings that weren't board meetings were rescheduled outside of that, and that's how we ended up, so the schedule's tight, so let's see what's available. We're looking for a Tuesday, probably the week before or the week after they finish.
Yeah, Tuesday,
Yeah, it doesn't even
Wednesday.
have to be a Tuesday.
Yeah, Wednesday, Thursday, whenever.
I'll check into that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. There's no further discussion?
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.